All right, guys. Another episode 4 of We Need Clarity. Tonight we're going to get into why you need to stop being a slave for companionship. Before we get started, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up, and of course subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications. That way you'll be updated with content just like this. Tonight I have two special guests with me, of course, Ivana and Franklin. Shout out to those guys. Um, Obviously, I'm going to start this off with saying this. Slave can mean many things. It doesn't just have to do with companionship. There's so many different ways you can interpret that from multiple different obstacles in your life. Primarily, I think we become slaves to companionship because we feel like it's something that we need. We haven't become whole in ourselves. We haven't really figured out who we are and became comfortable in our own skin. I think this is a big issue with a lot of people in today's society. A lot of people definitely will say that they're fine being alone or they're fine being independent. But why do we seek human companionship? Why do we feel the need to seek out others' energy? And I feel like it's just to determine, right? It's kind of like a wall that people put up. We fight the urge, we fight the need sometimes, but in the back of our head, in the back of our mind, I feel like we do need that. We do need that companionship, but you should not sacrifice your integrity. You should not sacrifice your moral value. You should not sacrifice your traditions for companionship. We'll start it there, Ivana. Go ahead.
Okay, so I agree with everything you just said. Especially coming from a person that for years had two companionships, one that lasted 4 years and one that lasted 5 years. At the end of those companionships, I still did not feel whole. There was definitely a codependency there. I went through a lot of years as a teenager, seeing my peers constantly be in relationships. I was always kind of wondering what was wrong with me and, why I couldn't have a boyfriend, because I always thought different. I don't feel like I was ever really accepted by my peers because I was in the library reading books a lot. I wasn't trying to talk about who was doing who and who was doing drugs and that typical high school stuff. Like I wasn't really into that. So even though I did have a boyfriend when I was like 14, 15, lost my virginity to him. And honestly, I didn't even want to do it. I just did it because he was asking. And I was like, oh, I'm in a relationship, so I guess it's okay. And then I didn't get into a relationship for a long time after him because he cheated on me and I was just suffering from that. So then I had my next relationship when I was like 18. And he was my first older guy. I thought, that was just going to be it for me. Like, he got me a little promise ring. It was nice. I had the key to his place.
Okay.
But he also cheated on me. His mother thought I was too young. Race came into play as well with that situation. And it was just a lot. So she enabled him to cheat on me because she wanted to get him away from me. He also had identity issues because he was mixed. So it was just a lot of variables with that. But at the end of the day, that still was another relationship that ended on with me being cheated on. So I then started to view relationships differently, even though I was younger. But again, I thought older in the mind, I was different. So I was just kind of like, well, at this point, if I'm going to be with a man and he's going to wind up cheating on me anyway, then why not leave this open? Why am I going to officially commit myself to a man if he's going to go out on me anyway? Granted, I know I'm not perfect, but I'm like, I'm not cheating on you. I'm loyal. I'm good. Like I'm open to learning. So that's how I kind of ended up in my first companionship. We met on MySpace. It was cool, and it took a while for us to officially meet because we were just kind of like talking on the phone, doing an online thing. But then eventually we met. He hit me with the, I'm not ready for a relationship. I, at that point, was cool with that. I was willing to accept that. And that's what led to my first bout of companionships.
Let me ask you this. From that first relationship, because you brought up two very important things: the identity crisis, which we need to talk about that, but we'll set that to the side for now.
Mm.
Let's talk about the first time you felt that you became a slave in regards to being a companion in that first relationship.
Well, the first relationship, I was like 14, 15. So I feel like the whole thing with companionship really started after I got out of my second one.
Okay.
Because again, like I said, I kind of felt like I didn't really care to be official with somebody. Like I wanted in a relationship still, but it kind of felt like I had no choice but accept the terms that were given to me. So when this guy who I liked, well, actually, I'm not even going to front. I didn't like him at first. I thought he was really conceited. He just annoyed the hell out of me. But eventually, opposites attract. So it's just like when we finally met and I got to talk to him and see a different side of him, I was like, you're likable. We can do this, and then eventually, we decided to do the thing. And it's like, oh, yeah, I got to keep you around for a little bit. But he also, in that companionship, though, I learned a lot about myself, especially sexually, because he was a patient man. He was the first man that was ever really patient with me sexually.
Okay.
So that kind of opened a lot of doors because we connected in a different way. And then, like I said, as I started talking to him, realizing how smart he is and, just how he started thinking a lot like me. It was the first time I met somebody that had a mind like myself. I could sit and talk to this man for hours. We had a lot of things in common, and even the things that we disagreed on, it was cool. So even though he wasn't really for a relationship, I was just like, all right, let's do this. But eventually, when that one ended and I got into the second one, that's when the slave to companionship situation comes in, because maybe I should have learned my lesson from the first one, because obviously, first off, now I know if you're going to do companionship, it should never be years. Like, you need to figure out a timeline for that. It should not last that long. But you get comfortable. Again, as that codependency, it's like a security blanket. He knew that because we had an open situation, if he dealt with somebody else and then eventually that didn't work out, I was there. And same for me. If I decide to dip and talk to somebody else, it didn't work out, I know he's there. He's a number away. Like, we had that. And then that became a cycle for me when I got into the second companionship. It was the same thing. He wasn't ready for a relationship. I fell for that again. And this time I had different connections with him. So it's easy to get into that. I would definitely say self-love plays a big part too. If you don't love yourself fully, it's easy to fall into that trap and become a slave. So that's a lot of kind of how I would relate to this subject.
So it's good that you bring that up, because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand the whole concept of self love. And number one, you can't really love someone until you love yourself. And I feel like a lot of people jump from relationship to relationship. They may deal with a lot of people without truly understanding as far as how they need to love themselves first before they can move on and engage with someone in a relationship or a companionship. With that said, I think, like I said, there's multiple ways that you can become a slave for companionship, right? You can feel like you need someone to take care of your bills. You can feel like you need someone for sex. You can feel like you need someone just around for company. There's multiple ways. And I feel like if people really understood those issues and really paid attention to the things that they were going through, it would become a lot easier for them to basically make their way through that or figure it out so that they can create a more healthy environment. Franklin, what do you think?
Also, sorry to cut you off. Also, healing.
Mm-hmm.
With the self-love comes the healing.
Yeah.
For myself, I didn't heal from those previous situations. So that's why I was easily caught up in the then companionships that came before me, came after me. Because if I would have healed and loved myself, I would have realized that I should not have accepted things that I know I really didn't want.
So yeah, what we'll do is we'll come back into healing. We'll let Franklin get in, and then we'll come back to healing.
So with companionship, There is a difference in relationships and companionships. And a lot of companions is something just that having somebody around, having somebody just there for, but it's not a true relationship. You're not all in. You just want the comfort of somebody around. You just want the acknowledgement of somebody. But a relationship, somebody needs to fully engage in you and you fully engage in them. Yvonne, you said something earlier about when you were younger. You have to go through pain and healing, though. You have to go through pain because, in my opinion, I believe that we don't the right way. We start off dating one person at a time. You said 4 years you were in a relationship age. You don't know what you want at 14, 15 years old in life. You don't. So when we start that young, I did the same thing. I don't know. I didn't know what I was looking for. I don't know what a real relationship is or a companionship is. I don't know what I'm truly set out for. And when we do that, in my opinion, we are setting ourselves up for a disaster. Now, I have a theory. It's my theory only. If people want to use it, please do it. But at a young age, I feel like you should date multiple people at the same time. 3 to 4 people, exact same time. You don't have to have sex with all 3 or 4 people, but you're trying to figure out what you're looking for. And once you figure out what you're looking for in 3 to 4 different people, then you look for the right thing. You'll find 2 things in this person. You find 4 things in this other person. Your number keeps going up. Then eventually you say, you know what? I got a lot of traits in this one last person. This is the one I want to be with. But you're going to get hurt. You're going to stumble if you just date one person at a time. And again, this is my opinion only, my theory. When you're dating multiple people, especially,
because
when you're dating multiple people, all in one basket. All in one basket. It's the wrong thing. We're taught to be monogamous at a young age, but you don't know what you're looking for. So now when people get married, I have friends that got married very young, like myself as well, thought that you knew what you wanted and really wasn't what you wanted. And you figured out the hard way through divorce and everything else. So if we start off at a young age to date multiple people at the same time, we can figure out what we're really looking for. So when we get ready for marriage, we know what we're looking for. Companionship, I feel like older generations, 60, 70 years old, they rely on companionships because it's not about sex anymore. It's not about finances anymore. It's about being with somebody that you can connect with and share some common interest. 67 years old, we're going to watch the same TV shows. We go to the same bingo hall. We do all those things.
But so, Franklin, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. Go. Say it.
No, you had brought up something about dating multiple people. And I, now that I'm older, I so agree with that. I had actually wrote an article when I had my blog up. I wrote an article about that. And now that I'm older, I feel like that is just so true. But I want to ask you, do you believe in an honest policy with letting those people that you're dating know that you are openly dating?
I'm glad you asked that. Josh and I are salespeople by nature. And what I mean by that is, yes, if you tell another person that you're dating another person, they try harder. We don't realize that. It's competition. I'm trying to outdo the other person. You tell me about somebody else, I'm going to try my hardest to outdo that other person and sell myself more than that other person does. People don't realize that. People think somebody's going to get scared and run away. They don't run away. They run towards you more. Because number one, you were honest about it. You were upfront. I didn't lie to you. I'm going to go out with Chantel tomorrow. And the next day I'm going out with Kelly. It is what it is. Oh, you want my time too? Okay, I'll pencil you in on Thursday. But you're upfront. Now that person wants more of your time because, what, can I get Friday too? Let me see my schedule. Yeah, you know what? You're good for Friday as well. I'm free. Whether you are or not. It's all about sales. You're selling yourself. People buy from people they like. It's my
let me
opinion.
tell you.
You got to think of it like a job interview. It's multiple people that apply for the same position. The employer is usually going to give it to the best suited, and a lot of the times it doesn't have to be experience.
100%.
Talked your ass off, or excuse me, you talked your behind off, and you sold yourself on that interview. You got the job.
So here's the funny thing about this situation. Now it's funny because me and Franklin had this conversation before. So the beautiful thing about me and Franklin's friendship is we don't always agree on everything.
Yep.
So I basically agreed to it at an extent because me personally, I don't have the time to date multiple people. I did when I was younger, right? But as I've gotten older, I've kind of became more careful with my time. Now, I may be a little bit more as far as picky and choosy who I deal with and who like I actually conversate with and entertain before I even get to the dating point. But now, once I get to that point, I would say, yeah, there's, a few people that I would talk to, but once I make the decision to date that individual person, I'm not dating multiple people. And I'll tell you why. I became cheap as hell. I'm gonna just keep it real. I'm not going out every weekend and spending $100 on multiple people. I'm not doing it. Even though I got the money, I'm not doing it. And that's not to say like people aren't worth it or I'm just being frugal. I just don't see the value in it because if you're in the sense of being a traditional man, I'm going to pay for the date, right? So I need to know who's going to actually be worth my time, who's going to be valuable enough, and who's going to appreciate it. So I'm setting up my conversations and I'm building the value before I even get to the dating stage.
Yeah,
so we don't have
mature, man. It's okay. I agree with your stance. I won't even front on it.
My psychological thing here. This is my psychological thing here. I'm older than both of you. Now I'm not saying I've been around the block, but I've been out. I've been in these streets.
Been around the world and yeah.
I've been in these streets. So when you're dating, we're always chasing after something. When you have sex, think about this. Now, again, this is my philosophy. When you have sex, you're always chasing after that first orgasm you had. When you fall in love, you're always chasing after that first love that you had. The problem is, in my opinion, when you date one person, you're giving that person way more credit than they deserve. Because you're chasing after that first love, that first orgasm, whatever it is, you're always chasing. And you're comparing to that first love or that first orgasm. And you're trying to find it. When you do it one person at a time, it's going to take you forever to find what you are chasing. If I'm dating 3 women at the same time, I'm comparing those 3 women amongst each other versus comparing them to my ex. Because when I date one person, I'm only comparing them to my ex. You're always comparing somebody to somebody, in my opinion. And that's just me. When I was younger, my boys had this thing called the starting 5. It's a basketball. You have your point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and every woman they dated had a different position and played a different position. One you may only go out to date with. One you may travel. One you're having sex with. One you can take around the family. One you're playing cards with. They all knew about each other. And guess what? They all competed because they knew about each other. And everyone had a role. My opinion. And it worked.
And I'm not gonna lie. I had at one point in my life I had that. That's not to say like it was a good thing. I think you learn from it. There's people who still do it to this day and they benefit from it in their own way. the biggest thing though is obviously if you have that level of communication with all those women and they know this, then that obviously makes things a lot easier and you're playing on fair ground. There's a blurred line between the people who know that and the people who don't know that, right? There's always that issue because no one wants to deal with the drama of 5 women who don't know about each other, and you're talking to all of them, right? Nobody wants to deal with that kind of drama.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of men that get a thrill off of that, and it's irritating. It's very irritating because I find it from the women's perspective. Unfortunately, I made a status, I think was it last year or the year before last. Matter of fact, yeah, it was probably the year before last, before I had got in my last relationship, where I said, yeah, I'm dating all of y'all. I'm not sleeping with y'all, but let's see who the last man standing. And pretty much like my inbox was just crazy because a lot of men just didn't agree. It was like, oh, why you talking to so many niggas? And then like it was just unnecessary crap. And it was just kind of like, but you're not even in the top 5. So what are you even on my job for? But you know, that's just me. I
well, and you know, it's
so weird.
But see, that's the problem too, because
if we're dating so many people at once, we gotta be sleeping with everybody. It's just kind of weird. Like, why can't I really just have options?
Okay, so let's talk about this now. From a man's point of view. Yeah, you brought it there, so we got to go there. From a man's point of view, if a woman's talking to 5 men, she's sleeping with one of them. That's just from a man's point of view. Whether she is or she isn't, the probability.
But then at that point, that can't really be considered dating if you already done gave up the coochie.
But see, the problem is women don't say that, right?
Because that's just my side piece. That's not. He can't really be in the.
So let's bring up this fact. There's been plenty of conversations that I've had with women.
I need to call when I need to get right.
Let's bring this up. So there's been plenty of conversations that I've had with women, and it's been on the lines of, oh, okay, yeah, I'm talking to you, I'm talking to them, and they may say like, oh, I'm not sleeping around, but I know they are, because you can tell in a woman's. Okay, if you're experienced enough, right? If you're experienced enough as a man, you can tell a woman's body language whether or not she's actually sleeping with somebody. But see, that comes from experience.
I can't agree with that. I can't. Because if a woman is in her true femininity and she just has a natural sensual aura, I could be celibate for all you know. I just like being in that energy. I like that.
A real man.
I'm going to do certain things that I know that's going to get you turned on because I'm just that girl.
A real man's going to know. Franklin, I need you to hop in on this for me. I need you to hop in and back the statement up for me.
I'm sorry, I can't agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with John. I agree. I agree. A man is going to know, again, at least I'm going to know. I'm not going to say every man, but I'm going to know.
Y'all think it's a sixth sense? Like, they say, women's intuition. Y'all got that men's intuition.
Okay, before you get started, Franklin, if you've been around this woman long enough and you've had enough conversations and you've been able to learn her body language, learn her cadence, learn who she is and her femininity, you'll know not maybe the exact moment, but you'll know very fast if she's sleeping with someone or if she starts sleeping with someone while you're talking to her. Go ahead, Franklin.
Okay, so what? No, go ahead.
No, I agree. I agree with Jay. You would know it. To me, when I'm dating, I have a policy. Out of sight, out of mind. I want your undivided attention when you're with me, but when you're not with me, I don't give a damn what she do. That's just me.
That's how it should be.
That's dating. Now, relationship is different. Dating, I don't care what you do outside of me. Now, if you're sleeping with somebody else, if we're having unprotected sex, I just assume that please have protected sex. So I'm not going to put myself out there with dating somebody like that typically, but I want the person to be protected if I'm going to be unprotected. Other than that,
I can't wait till we talk about that. I can't wait till we talk about that one.
Otherwise, I don't give a damn what you do. Now, I have a trick for you men out there. When a woman does want to have sex, say no. Just say no. Like, just say no. She's going to want it more. Now, in my opinion, this is just me. This is just my skill.
Because y'all naturally easy. Y'all be talking about women, but y'all naturally easy.
Easy. You're right. Easy. But if you have, again, me personally, if I'm dating 3 women at the same time, I don't have to have sex with all 3. I'm gonna have sex with one of them. I can wait for the other 2 because I already got something. So I can hold off for a little bit. And the more I hold off on you, the more you want me now. Now, when that time comes, I'm gonna lay the pipe down. I'm putting that work.
Okay, so are you at that point, if you are sleeping with one, is she no longer in the competition with other 2, like because she gave it up?
She's still
Or are you still considering her because you're sleeping with her?
She's still in the roster. She's still in the roster. She's still in the salary cap. She under the salary cap. She's still in the roster. She good. Now,
okay,
she can't get cut. But she can get cut. She fuck up. I will cut her. I'll put her on a 10-day contract, and after that, finito. You cut.
Listen, you know what's funny is a lot of women don't know that. They don't understand why they don't get it. And the thing about it is, and some people will say, well, that just makes men hypocrites because they don't expect us to do the same thing and they get mad when we do. It's a lot different for multiple reasons. And we can get into the whole like gender and all that kind of stuff and the reasons why. But we're just speaking from a point of common sense here, right? Obviously, it's not an even playing field, but we in this society have started to understand that, yeah, women do have those same kind of situations and we have to maneuver through them and we deal with them as they come. Mm. But like I said, that's why it goes back to what Franklin just said. If we push off the other 2 women, even though we're maybe smashing this one female, we'll push off the other 2 women and they want it more. So yeah, it could be good. It could be great. But so could the next one. And so could the one after that. But see, that's the problem with the early stages of dating before you get to that relationship. Now, Franklin had mentioned, unprotected sex earlier. Me, personally, I would prefer to be in a relationship if I'm having unprotected sex for multiple reasons. Because I feel like if you're not in a relationship and you're having unprotected sex, and you don't really have a title on things, or if it's not really understood or established what's going on, that leaves the door open on both sides.
It does. And somebody can easily tell me, oh, well, we're not together. That's the main thing.
Yeah. So.
Oh, baby, I like it raw.
Yeah, I can't agree.
Oh, baby, I like it raw.
I can't agree with the sexing the people, sexing somebody in the dating group. I can't, because I was never on that type of time. Like, I usually, if I'm sexing somebody, I usually like to stay with one person who I feel like can get me right. But at that point, if I try to date that person and it didn't work out, then that's why you on that side. I can't.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this: as a woman, if you get with a man, mm-hmm. Y'all are to the. Sorry, hold on. You get with a man, and basically you get to the point where you 2 are, exclusive. You start dealing with him. Y'all start having sex or whatever. At that point, that it's not good. Do you say, you know what, this isn't for me?
You talking about the sex?
The sex, right? The sex specifically. You say you got everything else good. Everything else, you got chemistry. They've been around the family, like all kinds of stuff. It's good on the surface level. Mm-hmm. Y'all have sex. It's not good. How do you move forward from that? Do you keep him around because it's comfortable? Do you have an honest conversation with him like, hey, it wasn't good? Or is it just you kind of just play the field at that point and push them to the side.
So that was another article I wrote about. I feel like women need to learn to speak up. Speak up. Like, don't go to social media. Don't go to your friends. Don't go to your aunties and your mamas talking about how his D was trash if you didn't approach him first about it. There's a way to talk to the man to make sure, because you don't want to bruise the ego. Men's ego is very fragile when it comes to that, especially because y'all have a lot of pressure on y'all to be this certain way, to lay the pipe and da-da-da, like, we can get into all that. But especially after my first companionship, he taught me what it was like to really orgasm and really love on myself. So I knew what an orgasm felt like. So then when he was doing what he was doing, it was like, okay. And I started to really learn myself. So for example, I learned that I like getting head. Like, that's just my thing. And you got to do it. If you're not trying to do it, then yeah, you got to be out. Especially if I've opened that door to have that conversation with you, with this is what I like. And I expect you to be able to reciprocate that energy to me. Tell me what you like. I feel like I said, a lot of women, unfortunately, a lot of us are not taught that sex is meant for us too. A lot of us are taught that men is only good. Sex is only good for the man. Like, you need to make sure you pleasure him. You need to make sure to do this and that. So this is why too, you meet a lot of men that just don't have patience with women when it comes to sex. Because just like with the responsibility that a lot of men have to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do during sex, there's kind of that same energy when it comes to women. We're expected to know how to do this and that and the third, but a lot of us haven't had good sexual experiences. We haven't learned to open our mouths.
Do you think that that's because of lack of interest or paying attention in sex ed, or because they're not able to basically get the proper education just out in the world in general?
I think it's a mix of all that. And then two, if you didn't have parents that were open to talking about sexuality, or people that you could actually go to have those conversations. So unfortunately, you have to learn through experience. And unfortunately, again, if I'm my first boyfriend, we're 15 years old. He's not thinking about teaching me about my body and making sure that I, that I came or whatever. He's not thinking like that. He's only thinking about him.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, when you've had enough experiences, either you eventually, I think too, people need to understand, I guess, even if you don't have the access to people and things, we live in such an open generation now with technology. So now we got to start maybe doing some research, reading some blogs or something. Like, we got to start being more open to learning and understanding that conversations are needed.
I would say taking the time to learn about human anatomy in general, right? I think men should take a lot of time to learn about themselves too, because to be honest, I think, Franklin, you can agree with this too. When we were younger, we weren't really trying to learn about ourselves. It's just like what you said. We were just trying to get that nut off,
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a while for a man to really understand like sexuality, and especially, dealing with a woman. So how do we fix that, right? How do as a man who's trying to provide the right information to the general listeners and watchers, how do we help people actually figure out, what they need to do? And that's going to be by having these kind of conversations, right? Basically making sure that women can realize that it's okay to have the conversations that they need to with their man, to let them know what they really want. And on the flip side, the man too, because there's a lot of men who don't really say anything. They just do what they do. They just have sex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no conversation. There's no real intimacy. There's no kind of real discussion as far as what's needed. But I want to tie this back into how you can become a slave for sex, because I feel like that's where we need to go in this direction. People don't realize it's very easy to become a slave for sex. And that's not to say that you got to pay money for it, but just the mental occupancy of how it can consume you can make you.
It's like a high. The endorphins, you can get easily. That's why I feel like the sex addiction and stuff can come from that as well.
Yeah.
There's an escape.
Well, we got to realize something. This is, again, everything I say is based off of my experience in my life, right? So when it comes to sex, communication is big. What we tend to forget is the mind controls the body does not control the mind. If I tell you I have the biggest penis in the world 1,000,001 times, you're going to believe it. Your mind is going to believe that eventually. It doesn't make a difference. It's the communication portion of it. If I can get your mind, your body's easy. We're just not getting into the mind enough. We're not having those conversations, those intimate conversations in the mind. Every person has to be trained the way you want to be loved. Your last partner may do something different than your new partner's going to do. You may like that, what your old partner did. Unless you tell your new partner, this is what you like, he doesn't know. She doesn't know. You have to have those conversations, but we're not having it. We're assuming that they know how to please us. No, they don't.
Exactly. That's where the pressure comes from. That's what
you can't assume. You have to have the conversations like, yo, I like my balls sucked. I like my toes licked. And if you want to do it, okay. If not, all right, this is what I like. You're not willing to do it. Next. And that's it. It's a quick conversation.
Right. Facts.
But we're not having that.
Can solve a lot of that. And then at that point, you can leave with a clean slate, knowing that you had that conversation. But I don't respect people that if you're out openly dating or you're openly with this person, and like I said, you're going on a Facebook group to talk about how bad they are, but you haven't had that conversation with them. Like, how fair is that? Once I learned to open my mouth, child, life became real easy in the sex department. And I haven't had no problems ever since.
Shout out to Father Time. He says, been there, hiding because I'm not sexy, corner of the locker room, the weight bench in the corner. He's bigger than me thoughts. This is a good topic. Father Time, and it's very important that we address it. Confidence is everything.
Facts.
Confidence is everything. There's always going to be somebody bigger and there's going to be somebody smaller. I think one of the biggest things that I've endured in my life and from my experience is women have loved my confidence in the bedroom no matter what. No matter what. I don't care who she was with before me. I don't care who she's going to be with after me. She's going to remember me.
Right. And
she's never going to forget it. And I'll be honest, I still got ones from years ago that call because of my confidence. So the biggest thing you gotta have, it's difficult to say that I know, or it's difficult to hear that as I say it. I know, but with experience comes the confidence.
True.
But you have to go into it by learning, and I feel like that's where the biggest issue is. A lot of people haven't learned about their body. A lot of people haven't learned about sexuality, and so that's where not having the confidence comes from. So take the time to learn, right? Most people should take the time to learn in the beginning, and then have the experience, and then put the two together to gain that confidence that they need to know that they're comfortable in their sexuality and with their own body.
Mm-hmm.
True. How many times have you went out and you seen a very attractive woman with the ugliest duckling in the world? You be like, what the hell? Look at her. His confidence. He is confident within himself.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. He's a short dude, he's fat, but he's confident in who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, The Weeknd has a line in one of his songs. He said, bad bitch, girl, I think I might get used to you. I might have to take your number when I'm through with you. All I'm asking you is to try to remember me. Excuse me, make me remember you like you're going to remember me. That's a hot line.
Yeah.
Because your job is to make her remember you because you're confident in who you are. And we have to, again, no matter if you're a salesperson or not, we're all salespeople by nature. People buy into what they like. And you should listen more than you talk. In order to sell somebody, you have to listen to what they want first. You can't sell me anything unless you hear me first and what I need. We try to sell each other what we want to sell, but you don't really want that shit.
Right.
So it's about the conversation. My
And
opinion.
that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest part. People, when me and Franklin first started this, we talked about communication and conversation. That's what it's all about. That's creating the atmosphere to help understand one another, right? To help understand the person that you're with. We're not having those conversations in society about a lot of important topics, not just sexuality, not just relationships, but even mental illness, right? All that plays into a part of, companionship and all that kind of stuff. So we have to start talking more. People have to start expressing their feelings a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's difficult. I know that we have to be strong all the time, 100% of the time. You can't be weak. I get it, right? But at the end of the
I'm
day,
starting to get out of that element. It's been hard work, but healing comes into play with that.
well, and that's what I was going to get to, right? The healing part of it, because I feel like someone can basically go through so much. Someone can have so many issues and so many problems that they create this shell, they create this wall, and at the end of the day, they're not able to let go because they haven't figured it out. They haven't healed. But when they take the time to find themselves, take the time to actually learn that the world is not out to actually hurt them, they can basically once again, open that door to maybe being able to, talk about their emotions or let some things out that they need to.
Right.
And it's like I said, I get it. We've all been through things. We've all had our issues. We've all had our problems. Um, But the bottom line is this too, and I think the general theme of like I said, don't be a slave for companionship. Don't be a slave for mental illness. Don't be a slave for sex. Don't be a slave for money. Right? There's so many things that people have become a slave over, and they don't realize it.
For
Obviously,
sure.
there's so many different opportunities that we can talk about, but the main focus is just not becoming a slave for anything that's not going to actually be beneficial for you or help you. You have to be greater than the thing that's making you a slave.
Right. And that comes with what you said, experience. So now that a lot of us are grown, like we done lived a lot of life, it's time to stop being repetitive. It's time to learn from those experiences and grow, because if not, we all know the definition of insanity. So the moment you just keep being in that cycle, you're never getting out. You're never going to learn those lessons. And you keep sitting there wondering why your life isn't changing and why this and that and the third is happening. You're not doing the self work that's needed to change. So you will be a slave to your circumstances as
True.
long as it takes for you to learn.
True story.
Shout out to Timo. Said, glad you said that about money. People out here working 60 hours a week thinking it's a flex. It's not a flex. Working 60 hours a week is not a flex. I'm dropping a video tomorrow. It's going to be how to or why multiple streams of income is very important. You don't have to work 60 hours a week to live comfortably. A lot of people are doing it just to survive, and it's sad, right? We need to help people understand how to make money within a shorter amount of time so that they can live life. You shouldn't make money just to pay bills and not live,
Ain't that the truth?
True
right?
story.
So we need to talk about that. We need to address those things. Like I said, we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, it's definitely an issue, right? And we're seeing it. There's a study, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow, but there's a study right now uh, said that the majority of Americans who make over $100,000 a year, six-figure people are living paycheck to paycheck, right? Ivana does well for herself. Franklin does well for himself. I do well for myself. We're all business owners here. Six-figure people. With that said, living paycheck to paycheck means one of two things. Either you're not living within your means, which that's the easy thing to say, or you haven't really figured out what to do with your money because you haven't put it in the right places. You haven't done the right investments. You have no passive income. So if your bills are taking up your $100,000 and you're just working for that money, you needed to find a second income years ago, third income years ago.
I will agree. A lot of us don't have a good relationship with money. And again, that's probably because one, we haven't taken that time to do our research, or a lot of times we have people that's also, aside from bills, you also got people that's relying on you. Especially a lot of them six-figure people, a lot of people that's, I don't want to say beneath, but obviously people that is not doing the same that you're doing, all they're going to do is keep begging because they know you got it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you want to help so bad. So now you just handing out, and you're stretching yourself thin, because instead of handing out that bread, you need to start teaching them, hey, this is what I did to get to this. Either present me with an opportunity to make this money, or I gotta stop.
You're right. There's so many, like I said, tomorrow we'll be on top of that topic. There's so many different ways that we can address it, we can talk about it. But to keep going down this rabbit hole of the slave mentality when it comes to relationships, frankly, do you feel that if you're engaged in a companionship or a relationship, that it's easy to become trapped? And I'm not saying you specifically, but just for the general sense of things, do you think it's easy to become trapped in the daily grind and the daily thought process of pleasing your partner, especially nowadays?
Yes. You have to, in my opinion, I'm always going to state that, in my opinion, this is just my opinions based off of my experience. You have to keep things exciting. There's one thing, you don't always want to be predictable. You want to be, there has to be some mystery there every once in a while. And there also has to be some spice in the life. I mean, whether it's sexual, whether it's going out of your way, and learn from your past relationships. A lot of times we won't look at our past. We want to say, oh, I want the next person to be like X, Y, and Z. But what did you do wrong in your past relationship? What did you not do right? What did the person complain about? And try to make sure that the new relationship you're going to be in, that you don't make those same mistakes, because a lot of times we follow our same patterns. We all have patterns, whether somebody realizes it or not. We all have a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And you have to learn your pattern and learn how to break your pattern. If it's a bad pattern, if it's a bad habit, break it. Because if multiple people tell you the same thing about yourself, that they don't know each other, it's you. Mm-hmm. If it walk like a duck and if it talk like a duck, it's a fucking duck. Period. At the end of the day. And we have to realize we are sometimes, and again, in relationships, the biggest thing is being accountable for your actions. I got a saying, stop pointing your fingers and start putting your thumbs back. It's you. Look in the mirror and say, what can I do better? Because we always want to point the finger at somebody else. Oh, they didn't do this. They didn't do that for us. They didn't please me this way. They didn't please me that. Well, guess what? What did you do? Like, how did you help this situation? A lot of times we don't. Mm-hmm. And back to the C&C again, communication, conversation. That's it.
We can't, well, I'm going to make somebody mad. But I feel like there's so many people. I had to stop myself because I knew I was going to do it. But the victim Olympics are a real thing. And there's so many people out there who are so quick to say, well, they did this, so I did this. Or they treated me this way, so I did this. Start holding yourself accountable for the decisions that you make, and then you'll see the world change around you.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about that last week. Mm-hmm. Because, I can agree with that as being a woman too. There's a lot of women that don't like to take accountability for what has happened in a relationship. And then, especially being on Facebook and being in public forums, you see people post about their situations, and then they're asking for public feedback. And then we're going to give it to you because you've asked. But then you turn around and get upset. And when we're pointing out, hey, maybe you should have did this before you did that. And now it's, oh, I did that, but you didn't include that in your story. So now we don't know. But unfortunately, it's a lot of that you're not holding accountability still, because you're still blocking out.
So
not
shout
to
out.
say that, just hold the whole weight of your shoulders of why things happened and why it ended.
Yeah.
But yeah, if, for example, if that man was cheating on you, one, did you probably saw those red flags. Did you ever bring it to that man's attention? How did you bring it to that man's attention? Did you have that open communication to say, all right, I know you did A, B, and C. Yes, I'm upset about it. It's going to take us a while to heal from it. Did you give that opportunity for reconciliation? It's just so many different variables. If you say you love this person and you want to be with this person and this and that, but cheating is you're out the door and you haven't tried to at least figure it out, and what's really the point? What are we doing?
So shout out to Bob. He said language. This is candid. There's no language barriers over here. This ain't sports. I told you guys this is going to be straight candid.
But taking accountability is real though. Overall, it's just it is what it is, and we have to start doing it, because if not, again, you're going to keep repeating cycles that you should.
So, one of the biggest things that I always preach is being able to not only hold people accountable, but standing on your word.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, people will try to decipher that or twist it the way that they want to, right? But there's no discrepancy as far as what that means. Standing on your word means do what you say and say what you mean. Mm-hmm. So if I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it. If I tell you how I feel it. Because that leads to you having a clear and uncut understanding as far as what I mean by it. And I should be able to expect the same. But the problem is people don't have the same intentions, nor the same moral values, or the same kind of integrity to have that mindset. Mm-hmm. Right? True. So when we get down to the nitty-gritty of the whole situation, when holding people accountable, you have to first hold yourself accountable to your own standards. Because it's easy to tell someone else what to do if you're not doing it.
True.
Right? We have to basically do what we say as far as what we would preach to someone else. Because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of influencers out here who will say, okay, go do this while I go do this. No.
Yeah, and unfortunately you get caught, because these people out here are investigators, okay? They will hold you accountable. Yeah. If we haven't learned that already, they gonna hold you accountable for it. And it's not, but I think too, I agree with you. It's like at the same time too, people need to stop putting these public figures on pedestals, especially you don't know them in real life. Like you don't know what they're really going through, and they're human. They're going to F up. Like I don't understand why we put public figures on such a pedestal that they can't F up one time. Like they're not Jesus.
So I'm gonna piss some people off. The halftime show was trash. Why did he say that? Rihanna, she's so amazing. I'm not hating on the fact that Rihanna sold 250 million records. I'm not hating on the fact that she been in movies. I'm not even hating on the fact that she's an amazing entrepreneur with her Fenty Beauty line. The thing that I have an issue with is when someone becomes an influencer and they say things and they don't stand on them, which is being held accountable for their standards, right? Rihanna basically said, hey, I'm not going to support the NFL. Why would I do that? I would be a sellout. I would be an enabler. Fast forward 4 years later, she's on the Super Bowl halftime show. I'm not making this up. I'm not just being a hater. Go look at the article. It's on time. Back in 2019, she said those things. right? So it plays back into what you just said. We have to stop putting people on a pedestal because these are the same people who are hypocrites and don't mean what they say. Especially when it comes to money and some kind of financial gain.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. See, I didn't know all that. I didn't even watch it, so I'm kind of viewing clips. But you make a good point.
I mean, it's just the reality of things, right? And obviously, you can nitpick and you can pick and choose hundreds of things that people say that they don't stand on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about it is, how mad can you get as an individual, right, at someone else who doesn't keep their word if you're not keeping your own? That's my point of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bottom line. You know, we can't become slaves to influencers. Like I said, there's so many different ways that we can twist this thing. Stop looking up to these people. They're just like you. They're humans. They just have a little bit more money.
Facts, and power and influence. Yep.
That's it. That's it. I treat everybody the same on the same level.
Sure.
I don't care if you're a billionaire or a janitor.
They breathe the same air as we do, and they bleed just like we do as well. So, true story.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So once again, guys, it was a great show.
Conversation, though, man.
It was a great show, great conversation as usual. Shout out to Ivana and Franklin. Like I said, guys, next topic, of course, will be the why you need multiple streams of income. That'll drop tomorrow night. Make sure you guys smash that thumbs up, and of course, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Also, Ivana, you got a YouTube?
Yes.
All right. Well, you need to plug your channel so they can go subscribe, as well as subscribe to the Franklin Crocker Show.
You got to go subscribe to the Franklin Crocker Show.
Let me do some cleaning house first and updating. Obviously, I would probably only be good for a particular audience, but eventually I might. Yeah, I'll go ahead.
What's up?
Y'all know
that's fair.
But I need to kind of clean up my channel. It's been a minute. I got to get back into doing some things.
All right, you do some house cleaning. That's fine. We'll plug it next time. But with that said, guys.
But I will say, if y'all want to follow me on social media, you have Instagram. I'm under Ivana, EVONA _ hot chocolate. And also on Facebook, Ivana Hot Chocolate without the underscore. Follow me on those platforms.
Dope.
Nice. Shout out to all you guys. Tennessee Tactical says Jerry is not be your golfer. Shout out to you, Tennessee. Thanks a lot. Much love to all you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.